Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back in AI era Islamic Abrahamic wisdom. History teaches us a brutal truth. Armies rarely collapse on the battlefield. They collapse on paper. When soldiers are unpaid, when records disappear, when families are forgotten, and when commanders control money instead of the state, empires rot from within. In the year 15 AH, Hazrat Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu an confronted a question no ruler before him had answered constitutionally. How do you turn warriors into a professional military institution governed by law, not loyalty? His answer reshaped history. Diwān al-Jund, the world's first state-controlled military registry, payroll system, and pension authority. In today's episode, based on the research and analysis of Mr. Zahir Ahmad Mir, we uncover how records became power, how paperwork became justice, and how a military was placed under constitutional control without weakening its strength. This is episode 25, the moment administration became the backbone of military discipline.
Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to IRA, Islamic Abrahamic Wisdom. Today we are diving deep into a truly revolutionary concept from Zahir Ahmad Mir's book, The Foundation of Islamic Jurisprudence. We're going to be focusing on the incredible wisdom of Hazrat Umar ibn al-Khattab and a pivotal decision he made, the creation of the Diwān al-Jund. This one innovation would change governance forever. Okay, so let's just jump right in. Think about this massive question. This was the challenge of a lifetime that Hazrat Umar was facing. The Islamic State was expanding at an unbelievable rate, and its army, well, it was growing from this collection of tribal warriors into a huge professional fighting force on multiple fronts. So how do you even begin to manage that? Because, the biggest threat to a rising empire isn't always the enemy you can see on the battlefield. Sometimes it's the silent rot from within. So many great empires in history didn't fail because they lost a war. They just crumbled because their administration got weak, corrupt, and just plain chaotic. And what does that kind of decay actually look like on the ground? Well, it means soldiers aren't getting paid, or their pay is months late. Records are a total mess, if they even exist. The families of the men fighting and dying on the front lines, they're basically abandoned. Who gets promoted and who gets paid is all about who you know, not what you've done. And maybe the most dangerous part? Commanders start acting like their own little kings, like warlords instead of servants of the state. With thousands and thousands of soldiers serving all over the map, this lack of a real system wasn't just disorganized, it was deeply, deeply unfair. And these injustices weren't random, they were predictable, and they were threatening the very soul of the new state. Let's just break down these threats because they're really important. First, you have what are called ghost soldiers. This is straight-up fraud, right? Commanders just add fake names to the payroll and pocket the money. Then you've got real fighters who aren't getting paid at all, and that is a perfect recipe for a rebellion. Pay becomes a tool for favoritism. The families of soldiers, the widows, and the orphans are just forgotten. And the big one, commanders control the money, which means they can build their own little power centers, buying loyalty that belongs to the state. And this gets to the absolute core of the issue. Hazrat Umar had this incredible insight, and it's captured perfectly here. Real control over an army isn't just about strategy and weapons. It's about finance. It's about information. If you don't control the money and you don't control the records, you don't really control the army. So, what was his solution? Well, it was nothing short of an administrative masterpiece. It was a revolutionary new institution that would totally change the way governments work. The Diwān al-Jund. So what exactly was it? The name itself tells us a lot. Diwān means a registry or an office, and al-Jund means the army. So simply put, it was a central, organized military registry and payroll system. Think of it like a master database for the entire military, the very first of its kind in the Islamic State. But here's the thing, it was so much more than just a list of names. You can really think of it as 3 modern departments all rolled into one. First, it was a registry, keeping careful track of every soldier's name, their family, their service history. Second, it was a payroll department, making sure salaries and payments were all managed properly. And third, and this is amazing, it acted like a social security system, handling pensions and support for the soldiers' families. It was unbelievably comprehensive. And this is where it gets really interesting. This simple act of organized paperwork completely transformed how the state was run. This is the story of how something we think of as boring, paperwork, became one of the most powerful tools for justice and control. This chart just lays out the before and after so clearly. Before the Diwān, a soldier's pay was basically a random gift from his commander. After, it was a rule-based entitlement from the state. Before, payments were personal and there was no paper trail. After, payments were predictable and the state had real control. And maybe most importantly, before, corruption was super easy and almost impossible to see. After, with records, corruption suddenly became detectable. This really gets to the philosophy behind the whole thing. Justice isn't something that just happens in a courtroom with a judge. True justice is found in the fairness of a payroll system, in the accuracy of a registry, and in the reliability of a pension. The Diwān was an engine for administrative justice. And this right here was maybe its most compassionate and revolutionary feature. This system created this profound social contract. It made sure there were stipends for the families of soldiers, support for widows, care for orphans, and pensions for veterans. The state was making a solemn promise. If you defend our society, we will make sure your family never has to worry about going hungry. The impact of this one idea went so far beyond just managing an army. This system literally became a blueprint for what we think of as a modern administrative state. The genius of the Diwān echoed through the centuries. Now, there was another crucial, maybe more subtle purpose for the Diwān. It was designed to prevent what political scientists today call military political capture. In simple terms, it was built to make sure the army stayed loyal to the state, not to some charismatic general who could use his power to take over. So how did it do that? This quote says it all. Control finance and you control force without violence. By having the state pay soldiers directly, it cut the commander out of the money equation. A general could no longer use state funds to build his own personal army. The soldier's loyalty and his paycheck was tied directly to the state and only the state. What is just mind-blowing is that the core logic behind the systems that every modern government and army depend on today, you can trace their roots right back to the Diwān. Human resource systems, centralized payroll, veterans affairs, state budgets, auditing, the fundamental ideas were all there in the Diwān. So, in the end, this was so much more than just an accounting tool. The Diwān was a constitutional weapon. It was a weapon against corruption, a weapon against favoritism, and a weapon against the constant threat of a military takeover. It was absolute proof that Hazrat Umar was building a state of laws, a state where even the most powerful institution, the army, had to answer to the system. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this explainer as fascinating as we did, please subscribe to our channel, IRA, Islamic Abrahamic Wisdom. We would also be so grateful if you would like this video and share it with your friends so that others can benefit from this amazing knowledge.